Hi, welcome to Take 5, where we daily consider devotional thoughts from Oswald Chambers' book, My Utmost for His Highest. Today is September 29th, and the title of today's devotional is The Awareness of the Call. For necessity is laid upon me, yes, woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 16. The beginning of this verse speaks to all of us. In the New American Standard Translation, it says, I am under compulsion, meaning I am compelled. By God's Spirit living within us, the Christian is compelled, led or driven by an overwhelming desire to live for Christ. It is true that in today's devotional, Chambers is specifically addressing a call to preach, yet the fact remains that the call to God is one which is supernatural. Dr. Chambers begins, we are inclined to forget the deeply supernatural and spiritual touch of God. The lack of consideration regarding it being a supernatural call can relegate his touch to more being simply an organization you are joining or a tribal belief to which you are adhering. Be mindful that being saved means God touching you, which is not a common occurrence. Returning to O.C.'s emphasis on a call to ministry, he says, if you are able to tell exactly where you were when you received the call of God and can explain all about it, I question whether you truly have been called. The call of God does not come like that. It is much more supernatural. The realization of the call in a person's life may come like a clap of thunder, or it may dawn gradually. But however quickly or slowly this awareness comes, it is always accompanied with an undercurrent of the supernatural, something that is inexpressible and produces a glow. At any moment, the sudden awareness of this incalculable, supernatural, surprising call that has taken hold of you may break through. I chose you. The call of God has nothing to do with salvation and sanctification. You are not called to preach the gospel because you are sanctified. The call to preach the gospel is infinitely different. Paul describes it as a compulsion that was placed upon him. Chambers goes to great length in sharing his considerations of the manner in which one may be called to the ministry. My being a preacher gives me the ability to reflect on his words and to agree that as I look back, I can give you far greater details as to when and how I was called to salvation, but really can't tell you how or when I was called to preach. By Chambers standards, this is natural. I would further say that with the wreck of 2012, in which I was involved, it was used to restore to me the sense of calling to be a preacher and proclaimer for God, a call that for many years I had chosen to ignore. Chambers says, if you have ignored and therefore removed the great supernatural call of God in your life, take a review of your circumstances, see where you have put your own ideas of service or your particular abilities ahead of the call of God. To this I wish to say that if any listening or ones who within their heart realize that God has called them to some form of ministry, yet have chosen to ignore it, it's not as simple as simply making an inconsequential decision regarding one's life. Paul said, woe is me if I do not preach the gospel. He had become aware of the call of God, and his compulsion to preach the gospel was so strong that nothing else was any longer even a competitor for his strength. To remain with your own desires for your life in lieu of obeying God's call is actually a sin. God said, thou shalt have no other gods before me, but your decision to live life according to your own interests is making yourself the God of your life. The one who ignores the call of God will fail to find complete satisfaction in living. You can't ignore God and be content. Some may use the excuse that it would be way too difficult of a life change to turn themselves completely over to Christ, particularly with regards in a call to ministry. O.C. responds, if a man or woman is called of God, it doesn't matter how difficult the circumstances may be. God orchestrates every force at work for his purpose in the end. This boils down to that if it is God's choice for you, then he will arrange all events so to satisfy the calling. Sometimes we believe that obstacles we face are God's way of discouraging us in a certain direction, whereas the New Testament, in particular with Paul's journey to Rome, paints the picture that difficulties actually reveal how wanting we are to serve God. Chambers says if you will agree with God's purpose, he will bring not only your conscious level, but also all the deeper levels of your life, which you yourself cannot reach, into perfect harmony. Take time to consider God's call and direction for your life, and let nothing discourage it, for if God be for us, who can be against us? Thanks for being here today, and now may God's grace and peace be ours as we seek to live our utmost for his highest. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks now. Bye.